Chapter 7, Free Children. Now this is a subject I currently deal with myself, as well as millions of other people, 95% men, 5% women. This little system they call child support, it's funny because I just spoke on how can someone invade your privacy and tell you what to do with your own family, but what I don't understand is how we willingly give this justice system permission to control our lives by using our own children as pawns in their game. Fucked up part about it is, it's been going on for so long that we don't really know how to fight it, and that just leads to deaths and overwhelming debt, placing parents in poverty. There's a lot of men we call deadbeat fathers, and few women who are deadbeat mothers. But that only applies to the parents who don't want to be parents or aren't in the right position to be one. No matter what, everyone is still human, and last I checked, humans make mistakes. No child born is a mistake. Let me make that clear now before any of you get in your feelings. What I mean by that is, some people want the affairs without the responsibility, and when responsibility hits, it's so overwhelming that some don't know how to deal with it because they haven't mentally matured enough to understand that they are leaving a piece of their own energy to wander with little to no guidance, which continues the cycle we're in now. Instead of using my opinions in this chapter, I'm going to drop some factual knowledge from my research, and hopefully others can learn something from this and make a change, because I'm tired of seeing men, especially black men, and some women go through this dumb-ass revolving door of child support, aka prison. So, you're forced by the courts to pay your child's mother or father because one of the parents aren't living up to the standards they have in place, which makes you a good old slave. But they don't tell you that overall you're putting both parents in a position to be punished when they were just looking for help from the justice system. Using myself for example. While in prison, a year after my daughter was born, with no reason, her mother stopped answering phone calls, writing, and sending pictures. So I continuously filed motions for visitation, just for the courts to deny each of them, but I continued to file motions until I was free. Then, I was released and immediately went to the courthouse and filed a motion for joint custody. I had a job 5 days after my release and was set up to get my own house. We went to court and even the judge was surprised, and his exact words were, "I'm glad to see someone come from prison and not only turn his life around, but prove that he is willing to be a father by all means necessary." But of course, my daughter's mother wasn't comfortable with me getting joint custody when I haven't even met my daughter yet, which is completely understandable, so the judge had me do 3 supervised visits before he could grant me joint custody. I made every visit faithfully, an hour trip with no car, and majority of my family moved down south, but I made it happen. The lady who was in charge of supervising these visits wrote a letter to the judge that said, "It's hard to believe that they've just met because they talked as if he's been around since she was born." That's all the judge needed to hear and was going to grant me joint custody, but, of course, my daughter's mother had a hidden agenda and asked to do a few more visits. So, irritated, the judge said, "I'll allow 3 more visits, and after that I don't care what you say, he's getting joint custody." What's crazy about it is, I know for a fact that her grandmother has worked in the same courthouse for years, so it wasn't surprising that after the other visits, the first judge had supposedly retired. The next court date let me know exactly how this justice system really works. We went to court and the new judge was an old white lady who was mad at the world for no apparent reason. It was probably because she resembles a wrinkled Sour Patch doll. I never got a chance to make a case because, as soon as we were called, she paid no attention to my daughter's mother, just me, and had no interest in anything I had to say or the proof I had of the things I accomplished with my daughter in the little time I was home. I tried showing receipts of the things my daughter needed and everything I accomplished in the short time I was home, only to hear, "I don't care about your receipts. Are you paying child support?" in those exact words. And from then on, the entire case that I made for joint custody turned into a case of child support. And because she saw that this judge was on her side from the start, my daughter's mother felt like she wanted to abuse the system, and all of a sudden she needs help with everything, leaving the courts to raise my child support from $40 a week to $120 a week. So, by them taking 65% of my checks, I was forced to get another job to cover the deposit on the house I was trying to move to, which was rented to someone else because it took longer for me to come up with the money. I didn't whine about it, I just kept looking. Then, while I was on my way to work one day, I received a call from the courthouse stating that I was supposed to be there for a motion to raise my child support, which I never received notice of, but instead of rescheduling due to their own fuck-up, they had the hearing without me and raised it to $220 a week. Now I had to get another job because I hadn't been home for a year yet and they were already taking everything I had and leaving me with little to no money to do what I needed to do, which soon after, left me with nowhere to go because nobody wanted someone who was almost broke and on parole living in their home. They felt they needed to keep taking money from my checks and the whole time my daughter was being kept from contacting me, the whole reason I started the case. But they, to this day, don't care to hear about me not being able to see her and only try to contact me when it's about child support. So, a custody battle quickly turned to child support hearings because it benefits the courts. Makes you think, doesn't it? I spoke with numerous lawyers and other fathers in the same situation, only to realize that everyone seems to be okay with the child support agency violating our rights. I can't sit here and act like this is something I've known for a while because I recently did research on the subject and came across a part of the 14th Amendment, Title 42, U.S.C. 1893, and Title 18, U.S.C. Section 242, which is the deprivation of rights under the color of law. Which means any person or entity acting under law and violates someone's rights is subject to penalty under federal law. A lot of people use this against police departments and such, but what most people overlook is the fact that the child support agency is not a government entity, but they threaten and enforce imprisonment on those who won't or can't make payments on time, which means they are acting as a government entity. You never hear about child support threaten you with filing charges for these payments, which is the steps they have to take before having a person punished. You can do the research yourself if you don't take my word for it. Here's a little research I've done myself, including public cases and part of the 14th Amendment I just spoke on. This part can be found on www.prisonlegalnews.org. In the subject, "Poor parents fail to pay child support, go to jail." Just the threat or possibility of incarceration can put child support debtors at risk. In June 2011, Thomas James Ball, a veteran, doused himself with gasoline, set himself on fire and burned to death in front of the courthouse in Keene, New Hampshire. He had battled with family court services for a decade over child custody issues related to a domestic violence charge that resulted in a not guilty verdict. He lost his job in 2009, was unable to keep making child support payments and was ordered to attend a contempt hearing. Ball reportedly owed thousands in past due child support, and his ex-wife had asked the court to put him in jail. Prior to committing suicide, he filed lawsuits and participated in protests at the courthouse, to no avail. He left behind a lengthy, last statement that, among other issues, described his frustration with the justice system and child support enforcement. "The ex-wife lawyer wants me jailed for back child support. The amount ranges from $2,200 to $3,000, depending on who you ask. Not big money after being separated over 10 years and unemployed for the last 2. But I do owe it. If I show up for court without the money and the lawyer says, 'Jail,' then the judge will have the bailiff take me into custody. There really are no surprises on how the system works once you know how it actually works," he wrote. Flaws in the system. In setting up the CSE program, Congress intended to create a fair and efficient system to ensure that parents meet their child support obligations. Assumptions underpinning the program were based on studies that indicated most non-custodial fathers could pay some child support, and their incomes tended to rise relatively rapidly, within a few years after fathering a child. Those assumptions work well for upper and middle class parents, but not when applied to poor parents, especially those receiving government aid. Parents on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum often face barriers to employment. This is due to a combination of factors such as limited education and work skills, substance abuse addictions, criminal records, and health-related problems. Traditionally, non-custodial parents have had limited or no access to welfare-type programs such as financial assistance, employment-related services from TANF, Medicaid, food stamps, and the Earned Income Tax Credit. In other words, they are required to support their children but receive none of the government benefits to which custodial parents may be eligible. Let's pause here for a second. So, these laws allow the custodial parent the privilege of not having to work, collect government assistance, and overall live off of the non-custodial parent and the government? And if the non-custodial parent can't make payments on time, they're subject to imprisonment while their payments continue to add up. Then they get thrown back into society with a criminal record and get forced to make payments regardless of how costly they are, and if it's not paid, they go back to jail. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. How can you expect a person to make payments in a timely manner with no chance to get a high-paying job and no assistance from anyone? It's set up this way because this justice system claims that it costs between $20,000 and $40,000 per year to house one inmate. What they don't tell you is that this money is coming from our tax dollars. So who's really losing here? We're quick to turn to this system for help and don't even realize we're paying more than we're fighting to receive. But carry on. With fewer employment opportunities and often little understanding of the court system, which bases child support payments on the income the court presumes the noncustodial parent could be earning rather than their actual income. Keywords are could be. Poor noncustodial parents are more likely to accrue large child support debts they will never be able to pay. As a result, they are subject to a number of sanctions, including having their driver's license suspended, which makes it difficult for them to get to work if they have a job, and civil or criminal contempt and incarceration. So, you mean to tell me, they can suspend someone's license, leaving them with an option of paying for transportation, but this is supposed to help them pay child support? Stupid. But carry on. There are many negative collateral consequences to jailing people due to unpaid child support. Notably, it locks poor noncustodial parents into a cycle of poverty, diminishes their ability to find work, or better paying jobs, and makes it difficult or impossible to participate in academic classes or vocational training to expand their employment options. Sometimes other family members will pay the child support a noncustodial parent owes to keep him out of jail. Thus, child support enforcement can impact more people than just the delinquent parent. The most obvious flaw of incarcerating parents who owe child support is that when they are unable, as opposed to unwilling, to make child support payments, they are still unable to pay while behind bars. Hold up. Repeat that for the people. They are still unable to pay while behind bars. Most people cannot pay anything when in jail, and if they were employed prior to being imprisoned, they may lose their job by the time they get out, making it even harder to catch up on past due child support. If the goal of the child support system is to get support for children, parents can't do that if they're incarcerated, noted CUNY law professor Ann Cammett, an expert on child support issues. Further, child support debt accumulates during incarceration because a parent's court-ordered child support does not stop when he is jailed unless he successfully moves for an order to modify the payments. Many prisoners do not know this. In some cases, such as in Nebraska, prison officials have obstructed efforts to inform prisoners how they can file motions to modify their child support orders. According to 2010 data from the Office of Child Support Enforcement, of the 5.2 million parents in the U.S. who owed child support that year, approximately 662,000 were incarcerated. Yeah, I know, that's crazy, right? A 2012 study by the Vera Institute of Justice found the average cost of a state prisoner was $31,286 per year. It makes little sense to imprison parents who fail to pay child support when taxpayers must bear the cost of their confinement, and when incarceration does not resolve the issue of unpaid child support, which remains unpaid while they are locked up. Rather, the cost of a prison or jail term would be better spent helping poor and unemployed parents find jobs and become more responsible fathers and mothers. And that's facts on top of facts. Why do taxpayers have to pay because someone doesn't pay child support and gets thrown in jail? Title 18, U.S.C. Section 241 Conspiracy against Rights. This statute makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person of any state, territory or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him, her by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, or because of his, her having exercised the same. Which basically means, if two or more of a government entity forms a plan to intimidate, oppress someone or threatens to commit negative acts against this person, they, by law, are violating your rights, according to this statute, but continue on. It further makes it unlawful for two or more persons to go in disguise on the highway or on the premises of another with the intent to prevent or hinder his, her free exercise or enjoyment of any rights so secured. Sounds like some of these bogus traffic laws to me. Punishment varies from a fine or imprisonment of up to 10 years, or both, and if death results, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for any term of years, or for life, or may be sentenced to death. So, when these statutes are used against these government officials, how do they get off so easy if they carry that much prison time? Title 18, U.S.C. Section 242 Deprivation of Rights under color of law. This statute makes it a crime for any person acting under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom to willfully deprive or cause to be deprived from any person those rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution and laws of the U.S. This law further prohibits a person acting under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation or custom to willfully subject or cause to be subjected any person to different punishments, pains, or penalties than those prescribed for punishment of citizens on account of such person being an alien or by reason of his, her color or race. Acts under color of any law include acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials within the bounds or limits of their lawful authority, but also acts done without and beyond the bounds of their lawful authority. Provided that, in order for unlawful acts of any official to be done under color of any law, the unlawful acts must be done while such official is purporting or pretending to act in the performance of his, her official duties. This definition includes, in addition to law enforcement officials, individuals such as mayors, councilpersons, judges, nursing home proprietors, security guards, etc. Persons who are bound by laws, statutes, ordinances, or customs. Punishment varies from a fine or imprisonment of up to 1 year, or both, and if bodily injury results or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of a dangerous weapon, explosives, or fire shall be fined or imprisoned up to 10 years or both, and if death results, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned for any term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. So, basically we're supposed to be protected by these laws and statutes, but they are used against us as an intimidation tactic to keep people in line. This is the world we live in though.